Hello everyone. It's Gabrielle from the Step Ahead Tutoring Services. Welcome to the 15th episode of Hot Topics. This is where we talk real talk about things in education, employment, social services, health, physical health, or anything else that is steamy. So our topic today is twice exceptional. That is our topic for today. And I have a repeat guest who is going to help me talk about this. Her name is Robin Simpson. She's been with us twice before. She's back again. She knows the drill, but we got to do this again. So for those of you who are not familiar with Hot Topics, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. All right, so who is Robin Simpson? Renee Simpson received her associates in human services from the New York College of Technology and her bachelor's from Metropolitan College. Currently, she's pursuing her master's degree in childhood and childhood special education birth to second grade at St. John's University, so fellow St. John's alum. In addition to that, she's a residential family group daycare owner and a master life coach. In the fall, she'll partner with us, a step ahead, to provide group tutoring for grades 1 through 5. Her interests are social justice in education and twice exceptional students, which is our topic for today. All right, so I'm going to bring Robin onto the show. Hi, and welcome back to the show, Robin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for the repeat. It's very good to have conversations surrounding social justice today. And so today I would like to talk about twice exceptional students, better known as 2E. And that's the number 2 with a lowercase e, 2E students. So before I get into that that part of the talk, I want to briefly go back to special education, because 2E students stem from special education. So as we talked about before, generally in special education, a student is 2 years behind and they require services from the school. So therefore, they either take a neuropsychological evaluation or a psychoeducational evaluation. Either one of those reports will determine the disability. Once the disability is determined, that parent then goes back to the school and have a formal IEP meeting. That IEP meeting is set up with the interdisciplinary team of the school. So in real time, that may look like the teacher, a special education teacher, the school psychologist, maybe the nurse, the family, of course, and any other stakeholder that's involved in that child's life. They sit down at this meeting, they take the recommendations of what is presented in the IEP and match it with the services that the school provides to help the student be successful in school. Once this plan is established, it is revisited every year. The same stakeholders will sit down. They will look at the end product of that year, if there's been an improvement or the lack of. And then they come up with new goals. Okay. Now, in other instances, for a child to obtain special education without being in special education is the 504. The 504 says, well, the child is not 2 years behind, but has a disability that's impeding them from staying in the classroom without these services. So they have a milder disability than those of the IEP. So now the student is receiving services, whether it's through the IEP or the 504. Twice exceptional students are very, very rarely discovered in school because you have a disability and you're gifted at the same time. So let's look at a gifted student. A gifted IQ will run basically between 100, 125. Those students are listed as gifted and talented. There's no clear definition of giftedness, but the most educators and administrators rely on the IQ tests. But here's what happened with twice exceptional students. Their IQ is lower because they have the disability. The disability overrides the intelligence. So therefore, the intelligence is pushed off the table and the behavior or the other disability is in the forefront. That's where the attention is given. So what does this look like in real life? You may have a child that, most people can say, well, he could do better, or he's lazy, or he gets frustrated. All these different characteristics of a child not getting what they need in school, it comes across as, because remember, their brains are wired differently. So what happens is they become oppositional to the traditional setting. And in their oppositional defiance, they come across as problems to teachers. So the teacher will just basically at times get through the day just to be able to teach other students in the class, and at the same time to keep that child, that student, in a place where they're able to go with the flow with the rest of the kids. So it's very easy to misdiagnose a twice exceptional child. Now, in twice exceptional children, setting into the traditional setting, sometimes it doesn't work. And then I want to point out too that there is another type of 2E student where the intelligence is higher than the disability. So that particular student will compensate and override the disability, and you will never know. So it works two ways. Either the disability is going to override the intelligence, or the intelligence is going to override the disability. At either stake, you have a child who is intelligent. And sometimes they fall through the cracks because of the disability or the behavior. So students who excel, but then later shows a disability, or students diagnosed with disability may show exceptional gifts in some areas. Now, one of my favorite American psychologists is Howard Gardner, and I really love Gardner. And here's the reason why, because what he says is that intelligence is broken down into 9 different categories. For that twice exceptional child, the chore becomes finding which intelligence apply to that particular twice exceptional student. Very complicated, because there is absolutely no formula whatsoever. No formula. So this is the major reason why they fall through the cracks. So Gardner says that you have a naturalist. That's one form of intelligence. This person loves the nature. They may be that type of person that will go out in the woods and look at leaves and say, well, you can use this leaf for this ailment, or, describe a plant to the T. You may have another intelligence is musical. This person may be sound smart. That person may be able to play an instrument without knowing how to read music. Or they may sing very well without training. Then you have the logical, mathematical student that loves numbers and can reason numbers very well. Then you have the existential, and this person is just life smart. Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, he has an old spirit or old soul. Was he here before? Because he's really mature for his age, or he has a heightened sense of, things about life, and he's at a young age. Then you have the intrapersonal intelligence. That's people smart. Then you have the bodily kinesthetic. That's the person that's body smart. They can play sports very well. Then you have the person that's linguistically word smart. They speak very well. Intrapersonal is self smart, and the spatial is picture smart. So with these 9 different intelligence, for a 2E student who has a disability and very gifted to sit in a traditional class, he's going to be oppositional defiant. He's going to disturb the class. He's going to be frustrated. He's going to be filled with anxiety. He may get discouraged. He may give up. But the bottom line is that as an educator, as a parent, it is our job to find that particular child's intelligence. And that's very key, because without it, do they reach their potential when they don't know their intelligence? Because there is a specific intelligence for each one of us, and to be twice exceptional, it makes it very, very hard to find. So I definitely, advocate a lot for the twice exceptional child. It's phenomenon that not too many people know about. And in finding a child's creativity, if he's humorous, if he, whatever wide range of interest this child has, advanced ideas. Sometimes children can say things, and as an adult, I could turn around and say, well, wow, that's really profound. That's letting me know that this person has a advanced ideal about something, and I need to check into that so that I can help pull it out, so that he or she can be able to, find their own intelligence. They may have an excellent vocabulary, special talents that they can do all day. So I, don't want to exclude children being in special education as unintelligible. I think that, that's where the real intelligence is located, but it's covered up by, a disability and the messages that somehow we get, if you are in special ed, you're less than, your self-esteem, your self-efficacy, your self-confidence is off because you have this disability. So I think the antidote to that would be is to try to help our students in the classroom and as parents, our children at home, to help them find their intelligence. So, in our community, you know, go over there and sit down. The child want to talk. That's their way of expressing their intelligence. They're not being disrespectful. And sometimes twice exceptional students and children come off as being disrespectful because they're very frustrated. And I think we need to turn that around so that we will be able to help them find their intelligence so that they can grow up and be very, very productive members of society. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for that. So in hearing you speak, one thing that kind of came to mind is the first thing we have to acknowledge is we have to acknowledge the disability first. And once we get that, then we can determine the intelligence, or the IQ level, I should say. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but there's no general rule of thumb because if the student is gifted and the disability is smaller, then that student will become resilient and overly compensate for that disability, right? On the flip side, if the disability is stronger than the intelligence, then the chances of that student being able to overcompensate is harder. So the behavior may be more profound. So my whole take is either or. Just because that student is in special education, I wouldn't want educators and parents to forget that there's a possibility that this child can be intelligent and to explore different ways of finding out what this child is really interested in, because that's the determining factor and that varies from person to person, you know.
Mhm.
So going back to the first one when I was talking about, living with a disability, I had to find my own intelligence. And it's a miracle that I did because, in going through school, there were like one or two teachers here and there that would, pay me like that extra attention or, point me in the right directions or, had other resources. It was something intrinsically within me that kept me going. But when I look at Gardner's uh, nine intelligence, I can clearly say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that my intelligence is inter and intrapersonal. And what that looks like to me is that, I'm more feeling. My intelligence is, when I'm working with kids, I'm intuitively connected to that child. So with that being said, that's my intelligence. So I'm very sympathetic, empathetic, empathic, intuitive, and that's my intelligence. Had I not known this, you know, my disability could have overridden the fact that, I'm able to do great things. What about the people who don't know that there's other intelligence other than just sitting in the classroom and getting good grades? It's a serious issue that we need to look at.
Oh, my mic was muted. But I was saying like that's a very good point that you made there. So is this a common issue, or is this a small fraction of students? Is this something that is so small that we miss it, or is this something that is a very common thing to happen to our kids?
Well, here's where I become very passionate, right? Because in the African American community, we are okay. So in the general population, we are 14.8% of the whole population, right? But 20.2% in special education. So what does that say? The majority of African American children are in special education, but only 6% is identified, and this is inclusive of everybody that is diagnosed as twice exceptional, 6%. So that means we are losing our children in droves by not identifying them as twice exceptional. I never heard of this terminology up until 2 years ago when I started working on my master's in education, because I was trying to figure out how could you have a disability and be intelligent? Like, where is this? And I was talking to my professor, and she gave me this um, evidence-based research on twice exceptional students. And I'm reading and I'm saying, oh my God, how come the general population don't know this? How come there's nobody advocating? Now, excuse me, not to say nobody, but how come there's a small amount of people who know 2E students? So I, I think it's underrated, under-identified, and it's very costly. Now, my own observation is for the African American child who is in special education and is a twice exceptional student, in addition to the pipeline to school prison, which is another discussion we will talk about, where do our children end up? Very talented in prison. So I get very passionate because, the labels and the stigmas that are placed on African American males, children, the pipeline to prison, the twice exceptional student is saying a lot. Is speaking volumes to me that these topics need to be addressed more so that parents and educators can know how to advocate for all children, all children.
Of course, of course. So are twice exceptional students, so it's like a subdivision of people with, I don't want to say subdivision, but it's students with disabilities. So it's kind of like a small fraction of that. Or is it separate from, what am I trying to ask? So twice exceptional students are students with disabilities. Is that right?
Correct. But they're gifted.
Mm.
They're gifted. And that's the issue. They're talented and they're gifted. Whereas, the more traditional label for a student who is gifted and talented is someone with an IQ of 100 to 125, right? Now, a student who has a disability, IQ can be less than 79. But based on what has been established as intelligent, you're going to say, well, if he has a 79, then he's not gifted. That's not true. He has a disability that's going to organically bring his IQ score down. And in the Educational Act, there is no definition for gifted and talented. it's whatever the schools say it is. It's whatever the standard is. There's no clear definition. So with that being said, only if you get someone who is going to now direct some attention to gifted students in special education, that's when the doors open up for those children. But right now, it's America's best kept secret because the focus is either you're gifted and talented with a 100 to 121 IQ, or you have a disability and you're in special ed. But the combination in the middle is not really sort of. And in addition to that, there isn't money allocated towards gifted and talented students alone, even more with students with disabilities. So it's really going to take that IEP meeting to really discuss this child's individual intelligence. So all the stakeholders need to have a conversation. So if I had it my way as a part of the IEP, and I'm pretty sure the strength and the weaknesses are discussed, but I would like to add, where is this child intelligent? What are we doing to try to find out what is his intelligence?
And what can we do? So I guess that's my question. So I mean, the first thing we want to identify that the student has a disability, and then once we identify that, we actually implement strategies for the student to use, and then once the student gets comfortable using those strategies, then the intelligence will appear or will just show up. Is that fair to say?
It could even okay. Children who are artistic, some of them numbers. I mean, they can do things with number. You're like, oh my goodness, it's obvious for them because that's their one and only focus, numbers, right? Or you may get another one where they're just interested in history and they can just, I mean, they can go back to history anytime, any place. Those are the ones that are more obvious. So even before you develop that IEP or that 504, you're going to know that that's their interest. But what happens more or less with the behavior piece, you're going to see the frustration more. So in you seeing the frustration more, it's maintaining that behavior all day. So it's really moving away from the behavior and finding out what this child likes. So it may take a lot of exploring, and even without being a twice exceptional student, I think it's the responsibility of all adults in children's lives to find their intelligence. So it's not really contingent upon you being a 2E student, but I just think across the board. But it's harder for that 2E because of the disability that it plays in. But on a general basis, trying to find out that child's intelligence, yes, that's a winner. Because now this child is going to focus primarily on their intelligence. I mean, once I realized that, I mean, writing for me is very difficult. I had to make peace with that. And so, and my cousin says, well, God don't want you to write. But I love to talk, as you can see. And I love to read with my auto books. And I like to do a lot of research. And I like to, analyze, and I like to put things together. And I get accused of being an overthinker. Oh, you're an overthinker. But that's my intelligence. And I have to understand that that's who I am. So for the children that's in special education that are 2E, we have to help them to be okay with who they are and function in that arena without the stigma. Because when you say that I'm an overthinker, and it's like, oh my God, I wish you didn't think so much. Like that's my intelligence. That's how I absorb the world, you know. And another point to consider too, our brains is inside of our head. It is dark inside our skull. It's our senses that draws the information into our brain. So between the five senses, one of those senses are going to be dominant to get that information into our brain. And that's the intelligence that we want to find in our children to help them expand and accelerate in that particular area, because what that intelligence does is it overshadows the disability and minimize it and allow this child to move on in its intelligence.
Awesome. So I guess the question becomes, so what is the first step that we can take to identify a twice exceptional student, and how can we bring more awareness to it? So I guess that's two questions that I just asked you. So the first question is, what's the first step? I like to break things down into steps.
And that's fine. That's the way it should be. So my suggestion is observation, right? Being able to really making sure that we are in tune to this child and pay particular interest in the things that they like without shutting them down. And as parents and educators, because we are so overwhelmed by other things, it's not that it's done intentionally or maliciously. It's just a matter of, the order of the day. I have things to do. But with helping this child to discover, it takes really a lot of observation. So all the stakeholders, so say, for example, little Johnny likes to put things together, build things at home. And during his IEP, the mother, comes to the IEP and says, well, little Johnny's home, he likes building. And then the teacher will say, wow, when he's in school, he is most happiest when he's building. And then the therapist will say, when he comes to therapy session and I give him a choice of things to do while we are talking, he likes to build. So there's a commonality with him liking to build at home, at school, and in therapy. So then now the next question would be, let's try to add that into his IEP, contingent with the curriculum. Let's connect it into the curriculum so that when we are doing science, we can put a building component in. Because very well, he may be a scientist, he may be an inventor, So it's really a lot of conversation between the stakeholders. So you're going to have good communication between every entity of this child's life in order to begin to see and observe the things that this child is interested in. The second question.
Yes.
The second question is education, education, education. It's doing a lot of research across the board. Here again, the schools, because they are aware of the twice exceptional students, but not really giving much attention. This is something that administrators can bring to the forefront. And it would be even nice if it flowed down from from the superintendent office, from the district offices, but any educator, right? Because it begins and ends with each one of us. It doesn't have to trickle down. It can also trickle up to develop a keen eye on twice exceptional children. So educators need to educate and retrain and get the word out when they're talking to parents. Parents can Google twice exceptional students, and there's globs of information. A lot of books on twice exceptional students. You can go on YouTube and get information via videos and talks and presentations on twice exceptional students. So it's a lot of information out there. It's just a matter of tapping into it. And, one of my commitments to social justice and education is to also get the word out for twice exceptional students because, having been in that situation, it's painful for someone not to clue in to the fact that, hey, I got something good in me and it's locked up. I don't know how to get it out and it's stifling me, but when you have someone that is there to support that student to help bring it out, then that's going to make that child want to do better. And then guess what? You have less behavior problems because everything, though, we're looking at this child holistically. So now he's getting the attention that he needs in order to do well in school.
Awesome, awesome. And you were saying earlier before about, there's not enough resources going into it. So, I mean, they're the gifted and talented students who have their own set of resources. So, do you think there should be a, a certain amount of resources devoted to twice exceptional students?
I think once the term is more used, then people would tap into what is available. Now, if anybody is interested in doing a dissertation, what is the percentage of African American children in special education who are twice exceptional? Very little information, if any, on that. So, for our community, it goes even deeper. It's less than the general, because if it's 6% of the general population that is identified as 2E students, can you imagine what is the amount for African American children? And I would even add brown children and English as a second language children that's in special education, that's twice exceptional. If it's 6% of the whole general population, how much would it be for our children? Far less. I don't have the statistics. I don't have any evidence base, but my best guess, it probably would be less than 1%. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair because they're going to use that resilience and be in survival mode. And we know once you're in survival mode, you may not make good choices, but if you're aware of who you are and is accepting of who you are, then you may have a greater chance. Because here again, there's no hard rule of thumb. If you do ABC, you're going to get this result. But at least we can definitely give, more attention to it. For sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I heard you talking about, like the English as a second language students, and it made me think about all the social barriers that are preventing awareness of twice twice exceptional students. So things like, again, a foreign language, right? There's definitely that language barrier. Then there's, of course, identifying the disability. It's kind of just throwing kids into special education. Um, because I understand there's money in it. I heard there's money in it.
Mhm.
Um,
And
you know,
there's
I heard the rumor, so that's but it's like there's not enough attention that's going to these students, and then even less attention going to students of color, students that have a who English is not their first language. So there's a lot of I would think there's a lot of social barriers that go into it.
Of course, of course. A language barrier, a disability, and you're gifted. Can you throw anything else at me? Is there anything else you can throw at me? It's the conditioning of these labels that can zap a person. So can you imagine coming into school? I want to go to school. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a part. But by the time school finished with you, well, you're English as a second language. You're African American. You got a disability. You're gifted. You're marginalized. You resist. Blah, 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 blah. By the time they finish with you in 12th grade, the only thing you want to do is lay down and rest. You don't even know. Very few. So this is why my platform with social justice in education is very strong, because this is life. This is not just going to school and learn how to read, write, and do math. And half of that stuff we don't even use after we leave school. So if I'm going to leave school and I'm struggling with reading, writing, and doing math, and I don't know my intelligence, what is my life going to look like when all of it could have been prevented just with a little ounce of attention and observation, and coming up with a solution to the problem? But if you're not aware, and like we said, to talk on the street that there is money in special education, okay, fine. If I have to be labeled and go in special education, I don't have a problem with that. But recognize me as an individual so that when I leave special education, I still can perform at my maximum, because that's the purpose of life. Each one of us are supposed to reach our full potential, not at the potential that's given to me because I'm in special education. If I'm gifted and I'm in special education, I want my giftedness to be made aware of too. That's only fair. That levels the playing ground. But if you're going to marginalize me, I'm coming from a marginalized community, then what is my chances of getting out? What is my chances?
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a lot of work that we need to do with this in this area, with us personally as well as us with society. What about schools? What can schools do to support twice exceptional students? Schools as an institution.
Schools as an institution, and I say this all the time, and it's the, how should I say, it's the honesty and the humility of it all. First things first, apologize to these children that's in special education. We made a mistake. We created a accident waiting to happen. Sorry. That's number one. Number two, have some real authentic conversations with parents. Talk to the parents. Three, build a bridge between home and school with honesty. Once you have those ingredients, then that will allow the parent to trust the system a little bit better, because the system is geared to modularize your student. So even if special ed is said, well, in the best interest of the child, we're going to, give him these services and resources to help him. But if you don't acknowledge his own talents and gift and all that other stuff, he's not going to absorb it because it's not what he's interested in. So schools have to do a better job in individualizing their observation. Yes, we want to be evidence-based and we want to have norm reference and criterion reference. Yes, we need the data. It's imperative that we have the data because then we'll know how to steer the boat. But don't let the data be the end all and be all. Too many times we get sucked in by statistics saying that you have to have X amount going this way and X amount going that way. But then what about the people who was going straight? They get left out. So yes, have the evidence there. Good. But let's not lose the humanness to that child in special education. So what can the schools do? Don't lose the humanness towards our children. Put more money in education so that, we can break up our learning. And I want to really put myself out there and say across the whole board. So if, whatever it is your intelligence, your primary education should come through that because that's how you're going to learn and function better.
Absolutely. 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 All right. So we're about to wrap up here. So Miss Robin, do you have any final words of advice to our viewers who are watching right now, who may have questions about twice exceptional students, or maybe there's some haters out there, I don't know. So do you have any advice to the people watching right now?
Oh my God. Yeah, you're going to always have the haters. You're going to always have the haters and you're going to always have the naysayers, and that's the risk that, you take when you bring in information to the forefront, I like I said, I didn't want to come how should I say statistically based because here again, all too many times we have people on the outside coming into our community creating these statistics, right? And very few people who are inside the community sitting at the table, right? To bring what our hidden rules are. You want to know me? Find out my hidden rule. You want to know what my community is like? Find out the hidden rule in the community. Then we can talk. So by me putting this information out, I put it out as a seed so that we can begin to think in other ways to encourage our children to grow up to be productive members of society.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so Miss Robin, thank you so much for coming back to Hot Topics and discussing this topic with us. And I hope that to our viewers, I hope that you guys are taking notes and definitely taking her advice. All right, so I'm gonna put up her contact information up on the screen here. So you can find Miss Robin online at www.rsimpsoncoaching.com. You see the web address scrolling across the screen there. Currently, she's offering a special promotion for her coaching services, 12 sessions for half price. For those of you who are in the New York City area, she also has a daycare center in Queens and is accepting clients for September onward. You can email her for more information at simpsonrobin@ymail.com. The email is also scrolling on the bottom there. So I hope you guys are taking notes of the web address and of the email. Hope you're writing it down, putting it in your phones, taking a picture. Definitely reach out to her for more information. All right. And that concludes our episode for today. I'm going to put up my information as well. So, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please check out our YouTube channel for more videos and clips. And don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to like this video as well. And even don't forget to share this video as well. There's a little red button, I believe, to the lower right hand of the screen that says subscribe. Press that button, check the like button, check the thumbs up, and hit that little arrow there. It says to share the video. So please share, share, share. Get this message out to as many people as possible. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Eventbrite. All that stuff is scrolling below right now, but of course I will also put this in the description so you can always have a place to reference it. And if you would like to learn more about A Step Ahead Tutoring Services specifically, if you want to learn more about our products, our services, things that we offer, or if you want to just learn about yours truly, you can visit us online at www.astepAheadTutoringServices.com. And one last thing before I leave, I also want to point out that we are collecting donations to our ongoing crowdfunding campaign on ifundwomen.com. Our unique link is scrolling below. So I ask that you guys please donate. There is no small number. The money is coming to keep our staff employed, to offer free and low cost workshops, to do web series like this, and to be able to reach out to families nationwide. So your money will not be wasted. It is all going to a great cause. So please consider making a donation to our crowdfunding campaign today. And that's it for Hot Topics. Please tune in next time for our next episode. I hope to see you there. Signing off. Wait. Bye.